Hello, everybody. This is Caleb Jones, and this is the Alpha Male 2.0 podcast. And as I record this, it is very, 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 very cold. And I am moving to 2 different locations next year that are very warm. So I am not going to miss the cold. I would like cold and snow and rain and crap like that to be something I visit instead of something that visits me. That's what I would prefer. And I am 2 months away from moving out of the United States, where I can be in sun for pretty much most of the year unless I decide something else. Kind of nice. But anyway, what I thought I might do for this podcast is a little something some of you have asked about. I've talked a few times about Jordan Peterson, and I know there are a lot of Jordan Peterson fans in my audience, and I know a lot of guys in my audience have at least heard of Jordan Peterson and or at least are aware of him peripherally. And my bottom line on Jordan Peterson, and I wrote an article called Jordan Peterson at my blog, you can go read it if you want, where basically I agree with a lot of what Jordan Peterson says. However, he comes at it from a very right-wing Christian viewpoint, even though he is not overt about it. He is a smart evangelical right-wing Christian. He doesn't shove his right-wing Christianity in your face. He just kind of comes at you from the sides on these things. So obviously, I am not a right-winger. I'm not a left-winger either, but I'm not a right-winger. I'm not a Christian. I'm not an atheist. I'm an agnostic. But my lifestyle is pretty much the opposite of a Christian. I have sex with multiple women at all times. Not very Christian. So anyway, his book, I forget the name of his book, 12 Rules. Oh, it is 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. And I thought it might be interesting to go through his 12 rules. I have not read this book, by the way, but I have a list of his rules here and a bunch of excerpts from his book. And I thought it might be interesting for this podcast to go through these 12 rules in terms of my opinions of these 12 rules and whether or not these 12 rules are Alpha Male 2.0 compatible, because maybe they are and maybe they aren't. And I am reading this cold. I have never read these rules before. I am reading them for the very first time live on this podcast. So let me scroll down here on this website. I'm just going to go through each rule and we'll analyze. So rule number 1, stand up straight with your shoulders back. Okay, there's some notes here about, let's see, dominant male, upright, confident posture. We have lived the dominance hierarchy, blah, 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 blah. Like a brave morning. So, yes, I agree, 100%. I have talked about, in my old blog articles, I talked about walking when you're walking with a woman and that you want to have an upright posture when you walk. One of the exercises I do literally every morning is that I stand with my back against the wall. I put my heels to the wall, my shoulders and my back against the wall and my head against the wall. And I just stand there for a few minutes. And what that does is it reminds your body, your posture as an older man, as an over the age of 40, to stand up straight while you walk. Most men, when they hit 40, early 40s, they start stooping. They walk with this stoop. They start hunching over. And it causes not only problems later in life with posture in your back and muscles in your abs and things like that, but yeah, it looks shitty. And so absolutely, I agree with this rule 100%. You need to absolutely, when you walk, when you stand, you need to stand up straight with your shoulders back, your chest out. The example that I have given before, and I learned this from some business training I took in the 90s, a long time ago. You want to visualize a string that is attached to your top of your head when you're walking or standing that is pulling you straight up. So you're sticking your head up as high as you can go. And again, certainly if you're over 40, but a lot of guys in their 30s and 20s too, instead of walking hunched over, you need to stand with your back straight, ramrod straight like you're in the Marines. You don't want to sit like that when you are on a first date. That's different. I'm talking about standing and walking. Yes, certainly. One of the role models I use for this is Sylvester Stallone. If you watch Sylvester Stallone on any interview that he has where he walks out, like on a talk show like David Letterman or, one of these old talk shows, when he walks out and stands, he stands so straight and so tall, even though he's not a tall guy, he's a short guy. But that's one of the reasons he does this, to make sure he's as tall as possible in his photos and things like that, because he's a celebrity and he's a tough guy. So he has practiced, you can tell the way he walks and carries himself. He has practiced his posture. He stands tall. Oh, by the way, lifting weights. So an Alpha Male 2.0 minimum, lifestyle minimum is every Alpha Male 2.0 over the age of 35 must lift weights on a regular basis. I lift weights 3 times a week. If you're under the age of 35, you should lift weights, but you don't have to. You can make the argument that you don't have to, but you certainly have to if you're over the age of 35. When you lift weights, that improves your posture, especially lower body exercises like deadlifts. Deadlifts are fantastic for improving your posture. Do them right. Obviously, you can hurt yourself if you do them wrong. But not only am I doing deadlifts now, I am doing heavyweight deadlifts. I do progressions up to my 3-rep max. I was doing my 2-rep max. I got a little nervous because I'm almost 50, so I'm not sure about that. So I went up to the 3-rep max. So I'm lifting heavy ass deadlifts, and it's fantastic for my posture. Also, exercising your abs. Strong ab muscles help your back. So that is also really important for your posture in terms of when you stand and walk. So I could go on and on about that, but rule number 1, I agree 100% agreement. Rule number 2, according to Jordan Peterson, treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. This one I'm not sure about. Let's do some reading here. When the ice you're skating on is solid, that's order. When the bottom drops out and things fall apart, you plunge and there's ice, there's chaos. When life suddenly reveals itself as intense. I'm reading the notes under this rule. Unlike predators of no comprehension of weakness. If we wish to take care of this is Jordan Peterson now. If we wish to take care of ourselves properly, we would have to respect ourselves. We don't, because we are, at least not in our eyes, fallen creatures. Oh, here we go with the God stuff. If we lived in truth, that's a capital T, so this is God stuff. We live in truth, then we could walk with God again and respect ourselves and others in the world. Then we might treat ourselves like people we cared for. Okay, I think I see what he means. I think that is an indirect way, if I'm interpreting this correctly, to treat yourself like you have respect for yourself. Obviously, I agree with that. Treat yourself like someone you're responsible for helping. Oh, wait, no, I understand what he's saying. No, I see. He's saying make yourself a priority. Okay, great. I agree. Wonderful. I agree with this 100%. I have said before, and this is not Alpha 2.0, this is my opinion, you should be the most important person in your life. So I am the most important person in my life. I am more important to me than my wife. And a lot of guys say, no, my wife is my most important. No. I am the most important person in my life. Number 2, and she's a close second, is my wife, Pink Firefly. And then right below her would be my children, my grown children. But I am the most important person in my life, because if I'm not, I will do things that will cause unhappiness long term, and that would be a serious problem. So absolutely, if I am interpreting his rule correctly, and I think I am, maybe I'm not, and maybe you can correct me in the comments, but if I'm interpreting that rule correctly, I agree with it 100%. All right, rule number 3, make friends with people who want the best for you. I agree. Now, here's the problem with that, and I've talked about this a lot. Sometimes your friends will want what they think is best for you based on false societal programming. They will not want what is best for you. They will want what they think is best for you based on their false conditioning. So if you're dating 3 different women, you might have a close friend who's a good guy who says, hey, that's kind of lame. And, you need to grow up, man. And you need to grow up and get married and settle down. And what is he saying? He thinks he's giving you something that's the best for you, but really he's just regurgitating the bullshit that he's been brainwashed with by society. So be very careful about this. But in general, outside of that, I generally agree. So let's say I 50% agree with that. You should make friends with people who do want the best for you, but want the best for you, not the best for them or the best for your culture or your society. And that gets a little tricky. All right, rule number 4, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not who someone else is today. I agree. I agree with this. And one of the concepts I have learned is to focus on the gain, not the gap. So you focus on where you were and where you are now and how far you have come. Because if you're always comparing yourself to other people on Instagram, people on TV, celebrities, you'll never be happy because, and here's the trick, and maybe he says this, I'm kind of going through his notes here. I don't see that. Maybe he says this. If you compare yourself to others, you will literally never be happy, because no matter how high you are in life, no matter how far you advance in life, there will always be someone way beyond you. You could be a billionaire. You could be worth $1 billion. And if you keep looking at, well, Bill Gates is worth 70 billion, you'll never be happy. So yes, comparing yourself to others is extremely dangerous. It is a good idea, and it can be a good idea, to use others as examples for bits and pieces of your life that you want. That's okay. But yes, be very careful to compare yourself. Now, at the same time, I think you should hold a high standard for yourself. So I'm not saying Don't ever look at anyone successful and model anyone. But I agree with what he's saying. You should compare yourself to where you were yesterday, not someone else is today. I agree with that rule 100%. Good job, Jordan Peterson. So far, I agree with most of your stuff. Rule number 5, do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. Uh-oh. Let me say that again. Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. So, Alpha Male 2.0, I have 2 chapters on this in The Unchained Man on Alpha Male 2.0 parenting, being the Alpha Male 2.0 father. And the tenet, the core of the Alpha Male 2.0 father is he does not tell his kids what to do. He instead lives by example. Now, obviously, when your kids are really little, you have to tell them what to do. You have to punish them and provide boundaries. Yes, obviously. But what you don't want to do is wave your finger in your kid's face and say, when you grow up, you better be a dentist, God damn it. Because I'm a dentist and you better be a dentist and you better go to college, because you don't go to college, you're going to be a loser. And, you better, even if you have a daughter, you need to find a man and get married, and have kids, because I want grandkids. And even parents of grown children, grown sons. A lot of you guys have told me, you guys in your 20s and 30s who don't have any kids and kind of don't want kids, your moms are on your asses. You need to have kids because I want grandkids. All right, fuck you, mom and dad. I've talked about this a lot. Fuck your parents. Your parents can go to hell. And that is also, the reverse of that is, if you are a parent, you cannot project your lifestyle parameters on your kids. You raise them by example, you raise them by loving them and giving them boundaries and consequences for those boundaries. You need to punish them when they do things wrong on purpose, bad on purpose, of course. Absolutely, you do this. I've talked about this in great detail in my books. But once your kids are 18 and they move out of the house, they can do whatever the fuck they want. And you can't tell them to do anything different. I have never told my kids, you need to be an alpha male 2.0 or an alpha female 2.0, or you need to be a libertarian and you need to start your own business. I have literally never done this to either of my kids. You can ask them. I don't tell them anything. I want them to live their lives as they want. The alpha male 1.0 father tells their kids how to live, and that will never, ever, ever make you happy, because your kids are never going to do exactly what you want them to do. So I don't know about this rule. If he's talking about small children, and maybe he is, then okay. But if he's talking about kids, any kid over the age of about, 13 or 14, sorry. I mean, you need to provide boundaries, of course, if they're under the age of 18 and they live with you, but you can't project what you want on them, even if you don't like it. If my kids grew up, well, they're both grown up. If my kids lived lives exactly the diametric opposite to what I think is right, hey, that's the way it goes. Tough shit for me, tough shit. It's their life. And, I'm consistent about this, both as a parent and as a grown child. If your mom says, you need to have more kids, fuck you, shut up. Don't tell me what to do. Very simple. All right, rule number 6. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. Absolutely correct. I have quoted Jordan Peterson in saying this. He is exactly right about this. And the problem is, none of his followers follow this goddamn rule. All of Jordan Peterson's fervent followers ignore this. Instead of setting their houses in order, they go and they scream and rant about SJWs and how we all need to vote for Donald Trump so he can make America great again. And as I've said many times, you have no business voting for politicians or trying to save the West or save the United States or save the world or save the environment if you're a left-winger, until and unless all of the factors of your life are near perfect. If you're making $75,000 a year or more, totally location-dependent income in a business that you like that doesn't take more than 30 hours a week to maintain, and you've got all the sex and companionship from women you like, women you find attractive, if all that is just completely dialed, you have no debt, you have plenty of money in your investments, then at that point, and you're physically healthy, by the way, let's throw that in there. You're physically healthy. You don't necessarily have to be physically fit, although that's even better. You're physically healthy. Then if you want to go save the fucking planet, save the United States, save the West, whatever the fuck you want to save, then fine. The problem is that is a very teeny tiny percentage of humanity, and the vast majority of men who are very politically active, who spend a lot of time on YouTube videos, watching political content, political blogs, political articles, blah, 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 screaming about politics, voting in elections, protesting. don't have any of that stuff in place. They don't make hardly any money. They work at jobs they hate. They're not physically healthy at all, and or they're not having sex, or worse, they're in a monogamous relationship not having sex. No, get your own shit in order first. Then you can save the world if you still want to at that point. I've done entire videos about this. This is absolutely correct, and I wish Jordan Peterson's followers would obey his rules. I've said before, the problem isn't Jordan Peterson. He's more or less okay. It's his goddamn followers that are the problem. They ignore what he says. They just take the bits and pieces they like. All right. Rule number 7. Rule number 7. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. So, in and of itself, that sounds fine. I am sure I'm reading down his notes here. He's talking about God a lot and Christianity a lot. And so this is a rule I probably will disagree with once I get into the meat of what he's talking about. Socialism and capitalism, and let's see, what else is he talking about here? Moral conclusions and morality and ethics. And no. So the problem is Jordan Peterson is one of these guys who says or implies, don't be happy. Life isn't about happiness. Life is about meaning, implying that the only way in which you can pursue meaning is by being less happy, which is incorrect. So I talk about mission. As a matter of fact, I did a whole either video or podcast responding to Jordan Peterson's point and other people's points about how it's not a choice between happiness or meaning. You have both. Matter of fact, it's a podcast. One of these podcasts, you can go back and look in the podcast list. Happiness and meaning. I talk about having a life mission. That is the meaning for your life. I have deep meaning in my life, and I'm really, really, really happy. And one of the reasons I'm really, really happy is because I make a lot of money, which I like. And I have a lot of sex with a lot of women, which I like. And I'm sure Jordan Peterson and his hardcore followers say, well, that's not right. That's not, life is not about that. It's not about happiness, about meaning. It's about both. And so the implication behind what Jordan Peterson is saying here, as you dig into this, is that, if you're just pursuing happiness, not good. And what I'm saying is you can't have long-term happiness without meaning. You need both. All right. Rule number 8, tell the truth, or at least don't lie. I agree. That is not an Alpha 2.0 thing, but it is certainly a Caleb opinion thing. One of the rules in my code of conduct, my personal code, is that I will never tell lies. I will never tell you something that I know is incorrect. I can be sarcastic. That doesn't count. I can make jokes. That doesn't count. I can refuse to answer questions. I'm a wizard at that in terms of women and my woman life. Not so much anymore these days, but back for many years, women say, are you still having sex with other girls? And I wouldn't answer the question. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm fucking all these chicks, or it's too soon for this conversation. So I don't have to answer questions. That's okay, but I can't actually say something I know is not true. That is very, very, very important to me, not because of morals and ethics, which is, as I'm scanning through his notes here, or where he's coming from. I address that from a logistical standpoint. When you tell lies, as I've talked about many times in terms of your relationship life, lies don't prevent problems. They simply defer and expand problems. So they defer and expand drama. They don't limit or reduce drama. So when you lie to a woman you're in a romantic relationship with, all you've done is taken the drama you would have gotten at that moment, you've multiplied it by 10, and you've shoved it out 6 months into the future. That's all you've done, which is fucking stupid. It is better to have that drama now. Are you still fucking other women? Yes. How dare you? And take the drama right now, because if you say no and you are, and she finds out in a few months, which she will, the drama will be even worse. That's a very simple example. I could give you hundreds of examples in hundreds of scenarios of how you could do this. So yes, 100% agree with rule number 8. Rule number 9. Assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't. So, yes, I agree. And this is an expansion or maybe a restatement of Stephen Covey's rule: seek first to understand and then to be understood. So instead of trying to make your point first, shut the fuck up and let the other person state their point. I agree. I have done a lot of debating topics, both in my normal life and on the internet over the past 15 years, a lot. And what I try to do, sometimes I fail, but usually I'm successful at this. I try to completely understand the argument of the other person, and I try to make sure that the other person is making their best argument. What most people do now in politics is the opposite. They straw man people's arguments, and they make their arguments into things that they are not. That is stupid. When I am debating with someone, I do the exact opposite. I steel man their arguments. I want to make sure that that person is giving me the best representation of their argument. As a matter of fact, when people debate with me or post negative comments about what I say, that's what they do. They comment on things that I didn't say or things I don't believe, because that's what people do nowadays. So yes, I agree with that 100%. Very, very good. Number 10, be precise in your speech. 100% agree with that. I mean, that's a no-brainer. I have gone out of my way, for those of you who have read my blog articles for many years, I've gone out of my way to be very clear and very blunt and even borderline simple in my language. I have had people come to me occasionally and say, Caleb, you're much more intelligent than your prose. If you were just a little more eloquent, then maybe you could get your point across. Wrong. And the example I point to is Donald Trump in the 2016 election. My favorite candidate back of the Republican candidates back in 2016 was Rand Paul. He was the most libertarian-ish of those candidates. The problem is Rand Paul would get up there in these fucking debates, and he would basically sound like a college professor. And he would get up and they'd ask him a question. They go, well, in 1964, the Civil Rights Act, and the way it's supposed to work, and he would lecture you. And he was very intelligent, very knowledgeable, very eloquent, and he got his fucking ass kicked. He got like 1% of the vote. Whereas Donald Trump got up there and said, I'm going to build a wall. Your leaders are stupid. And everyone in the audience had orgasms, and he became the president. So yes, I am very simple in my language because I'm trying to convey concepts to a very wide audience, to sift that audience down into a niche so I can make money. So yes, I am very, very precise in how I speak. I go out of my way to be double precise because I've learned that unfortunately, average reading comprehension on the internet is very low. It's around a 5th grade, 6th grade level. So you have to be very precise and very specific. So I agree 100%. Pretty cool. I'm agreeing with most of these rules here. I got 2 more here. So let's see. Rule 11. Do not bother children when they are skateboarding. And one of the notes here is, of course, it was dangerous. Danger was the point. They wanted to triumph over danger. It would have been safer in a protective environment, but we would have ruined it. They weren't trying to be safe. They were trying to be competent. And it's competence that makes people as safe as they truly can be. Yeah, good. I'm just kind of reading down his notes here because this is kind of a hyperbolic or simile-based rule. Let's see. From 1997 to 2012, according to the Pew Research Center, I'm reading Jordan Peterson's notes, 180 of the number of women aged 18 to 34 said that a successful marriage is one of the most important things in life, rose from 28 to 37%, an increase of more than 30%. The number of young men who said the same thing declined 15% over the same period, from 35 to 29%. Yeah, I mean, that's a big topic, a little off topic for this podcast, but of course, I mean, women aren't the ones who get financially raped in divorces. So of course, I mean, that's just stupid. I'm not sure why he threw that in here in terms of these notes for letting them skateboard. So I'm trying to find what he means here, going through his notes. Competence, not power, as a prime determinator of status. I think what he's saying is let boys take risks. Men enforce, this is him again, men enforce a code of behavior on each other when working together. Do your work, pull your weight, stay awake and pay attention. Don't whine or be touchy. Stand up for your friends. Don't suck up and don't snitch. Don't be a slave to stupid rules. Don't, in the immortal words of Arnold Schwarzenegger, be a girly man. Don't be dependent at all, ever, period. The harassment that is part of acceptance on a working crew is a test. Are you tough, entertaining, competent, and reliable? If not, go away. Simple as that. We don't need to feel sorry for you. We don't want to put up with your narcissism, and we don't want to do your work. Well, fuck, I agree with all that, obviously. That's all very alpha and very masculine. So I guess I agree with this rule, even though I don't quite understand what he's saying. Yeah, I think I agree, based on what I'm reading here, if I'm taking this in context. Maybe I'm not, but yeah. All right, cool. All right, last rule. Rule number 12. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. What in the fuck are you talking about, Jordan Peterson? Let's see what he says here. By the 1890s, Superman was suffering from a terminal deus ex machina, a Latin term meaning God from the machine. The term described as the rescue of the imperiled hero in ancient Greek and Roman plays by sudden and miraculous appearance of an all-powerful God. Huh? What does that have to do with it? Perhaps you might start noticing this when you love someone. It's not despite their limitations. It's because of their limitations. Kind of, yes, to a degree, but that's not, I don't love Pink Firefly because of her limitations. But I agree that there are a few of her limitations I find cute and attractive. I'm not sure if that's why I love her, though. Let's see what else he says. Set aside some time to talk and think about the illnesses or other crises and how it should be managed every day. Do not talk or think about it otherwise. If you do not limit its effect, you'll become exhausted and everything will spiral into the ground. This is not helpful. Conserve your strength. I don't know what he's talking about here. I really don't. When you're going for a walk and your head's spinning. Okay. And maybe when you're going for a walk and your head is spinning, a cat will show up. And if you pay attention to it, you will get a reminder for just 15 seconds that the wonder of being, and he capitalized the word being, might make up for the ineradicable suffering that accompanies it. Oh God, here he goes about suffering again. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. I don't exactly know what he means. Jordan Peterson, as a right-wing Christian, loves the concept of suffering. He thinks suffering is somehow noble. I do not. If you read chapter 2 of The Unchained Man, I have an entire chapter about why you do not need to experience suffering to be happy. You should read that chapter if you have that book. If you don't have the book, alphamalebook.com. It's only $7. I have an entire chapter devoted to why that concept is stupid. So I don't know what he means here. If he means, sniff the roses every once in a while you're suffering through the horrible slog that is life, I just disagree with the premise. So I think I disagree with this rule based again on what I'm reading here. Now that's his 12 rules. It's very interesting to me how Jordan Peterson has completely imploded. The guy got addicted to some kind of prescription drugs to deal with some other problem he had. And it's kind of interesting that these, a guy who teaches self-help and how to live a great life has had and is now experiencing that level of a fucked up life. Nothing personal against him, but I am always suspicious about guys who teach a certain life. And then when you look inside, they're living the opposite of what they teach in many respects. I don't know. That is an entirely different conversation. For this podcast, I'm trying to separate the man from his advice, although it's difficult to do that when he talks about things like God and and suffering and all that crap. So, but to be fair, the vast majority of these rules, I not only agree with, but I agree with 100%. I think I only disagree with 2 of them and partially disagree with 1 of them out of 12. Not bad. So in general, that's what I think about his rules. Pretty much agree. I have never read his book. I don't think I will. I just don't think I'll relate to a lot of it. And I think a lot of it would be repeat for me. But there you go. So if you had an opinion on what I thought about Jordan Peterson's core content, his 12 rules, there you go. And if you are listening to this when this podcast is published around Christmas, I hope you have a very Merry Christmas and a wonderful New Year. And I will see you in about a week. Bye.